What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. Today I want to talk about how Black Power empowers everybody else, right? How Black Power empowers everybody else, right? And how Black Power itself is a very dangerous tool to those who use white power to dominate the world, right? And let me explain what I mean, right? When I say white power, I'm not talking about all Europeans, right? Because all Europeans, the vast majority of Europeans don't actually benefit from white power. They actually suffer from white power, the construct of white power, right? But in order for white power to be identified as power, they constructed black power. They themselves constructed this black power, or they marginalized all Africans into this area, right? To where we had to, be identified as this group of black, which everybody, identifies us as black. Because to be honest, to be African is to be human, right? And Africans, we're the most diverse human beings on the planet, meaning there's the most different types of humans on the planet. They all reside in Africa and they look like Africans. We make up the biggest human demographic. If aliens were to come down here and they needed to see what a human look like, going to Africa would be your best bet, right? You will be able to get every different look, every phenotype in Africa. You don't need to go anywhere else. You can find everything you're looking for in Africa, because we represent pretty much all human beings, right? 99.99% of human beings, and that's just what it is, right? But what I've noticed, right, and I think this has never been a new thing, right? When black people project their culture, because it all wraps around culture and all that stuff, right? Because people like to tell us we don't have culture, and I want you to think about the people that say we don't have culture, right? Notice that while they're saying we don't have culture, usually they're doing something that's culturally attached to us, right? They are usually talking in our vernacular. In African Americans' case, I'm talking about the AAVE vernacular. All over the world, they're talking in our dialect on purpose, right? They are emulating our actual culture. They're emulating how we speak to each other. They're emulating how we dance. They're emulating our persona. Even within the LGBTQ community, right? The framework for a liberated lesbian woman of any note is a freed, powerful black woman, right? They emulate a black woman. Even all the males, no matter what race they are, if they're gay, right? If they're a man and they're trying to emulate what they perceive to be a woman, something they desire to be, something they feel like they are, they always emulate a black female. That is the default thing that they want to be, a black female, right? The males, right? The males emulate the muscles, the size, the masculine strength of the black male. Like the black male naturally, right? Like if you look at men, we listen to the language of body language, right? Because we're all males and body language is important, right? We don't talk about it, but body language is very important for communication. If you look at a black man, what's deemed to be intimidating or a strong, capable black man, it's usually the default is a black man with his shirt off, right? 9 times out of 10, you'll see the picture, black man with his shirt off. Maybe with, if it's a propaganda type picture, he'll be wearing like some baggy jeans and his underwear poking out. But it'll be that black man with his shirt off, and that archetype of a man is deemed intimidating, to be afraid of, to give respect, because you say what you want. If you're afraid of something, you respect it. If you're afraid of something, you respect it. right? So a black man just standing there, doesn't have to be any particularly big, and just a black man with his shirt off is intimidating to most people, right? But if you look at other people, it doesn't work the same way, right? So for a European American to look intimidating, right, for his, his that man thing, like I'm in my frame, usually they need attachments, right? Especially if they're comparing themselves to, another, guy, another person from another group that's already got it, right? They need neck beards, they need Oakley shades to cover their eyes, they need armor, they need guns, they need all that, the gloves with the Kevlar knuckle things on it. They need every type of attack. If you notice, looking at culture, they are a culture of attachments, right? They will attach outside devices to them to amplify them, right? Like like snails switching out a shell for protection. They do that, right? And then they will put on the persona, the look of an intimidating European is one that looks like a soldier, right? Not just a regular white man just standing there with his shirt off, unless he's Irish, right? Irish or Norwegian, for them, a man standing there with his shirt off is good enough, right? But he'll probably have a battle axe or some shit like that. But what I'm really trying to get to is African people and the power that we possess, the power of strength, right? The power of persuasion, the power to speak our minds. African people in general, we speak our minds more than other groups of people. Some groups take pride culturally into being silent, right? Like the Japanese, right? They take pride in like maintaining a certain level of respect, right? They take pride in it to the point to where they will commit seppuku and kill themselves, and not only kill themselves, culturally, they would not only kill themselves in order to regain respect, for their family amongst the community, but they may also kill their entire line, right? Meaning their sons and themselves, if necessary, in order to maintain a certain level of respect for their family. Like they will go above and beyond, right? Within their culture, right? And that it may be weird to us, committing respectful suicide, but that's part of their culture, right? Other groups have other ways of of being. Like Europeans, they have a I don't know if you ever seen what happens when you gather a bunch of Europeans to get them amped up about something, right? A good example would be mosh pits, rock concerts, where you would gather their youth together, unbridled, testosterone-filled, natural males in their natural habitat, in a pack mentality, and just to see what kind of music, what tone, what vibration motivates them. It's very similar to when you watching like Lord of the Rings or something, and you see the orcs, getting ready for battle, after the sun done went down, and they're moving around in unison in circles, getting themselves amped up before battle. Like if you look at how they are, like how they make us in movies like Avatar, those are clearly black folks, right? Well, they depict themselves in movies too, like orcs and stuff like that. Like, and if you look at real life, you'll see that they kind of emulate what they manifest in those movies themselves amongst their youth. You just type it in I'm not making nothing up. Type this in YouTube. Type in mosh pits. Mosh pits. MOSH space pit. Right? Rock concert. Mosh pit. Rock concert. Once you type that in, your mind will be blown. You'll be like, oh, okay, you would never, and I've been to one of these things before in North Carolina. It's everything that you see on YouTube. It's everything that you think it is. Everything, right? I've been to one, right? Now, black people, because we're so loud and boisterous, because no matter, even in our own continent where we deal and have issues with each other, we're still loud and boisterous to each other, right? We're very expressive. So and we're expressive to power. We don't have a culture of shutting our mouths and being quiet about things. Now, we may be in a situation where we didn't know or didn't understand what was happening around us, which is most people on the planet don't understand the apparatuses around them that's causing them to be in the situation they're in, right? People don't pay attention to all that stuff. That's not their profession, right? But, you know, we Africans has never been known for just being quiet. It's not part of our culture to be quiet and not say nothing when obvious wrongs are being wrong, or you know, things like that, right? So when we go to different places, no matter where we're coming from as Africans, at some point, you know, we're going to say something if we feel like we're being discriminated against. So we feel like we're being wronged or something bad is happening, we're going to say something, right? So when other groups see that, they're like, wow. First they complain. They be like, oh, them guys are loud. They complain a lot, right? They say that out loud because that's the proper thing to say amongst their group, because they are looking at it from their cultural perspective to hush, hush, don't say nothing, because that's a sign of strength to them, to say nothing, to suck it up, don't complain, be stoic no matter what, right? Don't rock the boat, don't be an outlier, right? Conform. That's what they do. That's how they survive. Sometimes you got to do that. And hey, there are black people in America who live amongst majority Europeans who have conformed to European society in order to survive. And when their children were born, their children conformed to the only thing they knew, and that became their culture because their parents made them act that way in order for them to survive in such a hostile environment. Black people can, especially if we're in small numbers, can conform to the culture of another group, which we do in America, white group, right? The European group, in order to survive in those environments, which we have no choice but to live in, right? Because we want to get along. We got to get along with the people around us. So we say and capitulate so that other people feel comfortable around us. That's where you get the I got a black friend, or that's where you get those people. Then sometimes they may marry one, and because they have no other choice, and they create a child that's multicultural, that's mixed mulatto, and then they end up having a complex, and then they one side doesn't really like them at all, or doesn't support them, or doesn't feel like they're wholeheartedly part of the family, right? Which gains them a complex. We know that's always the European side, and the black side makes fun of them jokingly that they not always black, and then that also causes a conflict because they get told they're not black. They also get told they're not white. So it's like, what the hell am I? And on the inside, they know who they feel like they identify with, but it doesn't always translate when they're around their family. So that causes a lot of issues, which we can see today, right? And that happens not just in America, but in everywhere amongst groups who mix. That is a problem, with usually the first generation of the first group of mixed people in those areas. But if you look at, the world where white is right, white is beautiful, for a good 500 years, maybe a little bit more, a certain group of people, because of their practices of world domination and conquering, have convinced the melanated world, which is most of it, that white is right, and that the natural brownness that allows the sun to be your friend, that thing that says that you are friends with the sun, that thing, one of the most important organs in your body that allows you to have a friendly relationship with the sun itself, the giver of life, that thing is bad, right? It's convinced the world that thing is bad, right? And that the whiter you are, the least connected you are to nature, the least you are connected to Mother Earth, the better you are. That's what they have convinced, right? So you got all these brown people, all these brown people from all over the world who within their own communities, they get marginalized by their own people, right? Like in Asia, right? Indians, real Indians are dark. Real Indians are dark. Like Africans, they are consistently like us, right? But within their own communities, right? When you look on Indian TV, what do you see? You see all the northern white ones, right? You see the ones that bleach their skin, right? You see all of that, right? You see, that's what represents India, is the whitest version of that Indian, right? And they even have a system that makes sure that if you are a dark-skinned Indian, you're disenfranchised, you're not represented. Even so, when you see all the Indian gods, right, they're being represented in this modern pale skin form, not its black, dark brown form that those deities were inspired by the people that those deities were inspired by, right? Same thing in other parts of Asia where the majority of Asians are dark, right? But the industry of bleaching is so big in Asia that they just do it every day. Like these Asian, Korea, Japan, like these Vietnam, Cambodia. These Asians are dark skinned, but when you turn on TV, you see brown skin, right? And you see, because they have a culture of not standing up or really protesting like us. Not to say that they don't have their own form of protest, but they don't do it in the form in which we do it, which is the most effective out of all forms of protest. Apparently, our art form of expression is the one that's most potent, right? Because we do it so unapologetically, and we do it not only in our own community, where you see us fighting with our own people to recognize, colorism and talk about all those things amongst our own selves. We also get on European Americans and other ethnic groups about discriminating against us. We don't just sit back and let it happen. We're not just sitting there and getting bullied around the world without talking and saying something, right? And that inspires other melanated people who are just as dark as us, who get discriminated on, who gets treated just as bad as us, right? And have zero representation within their communities. I see dark-skinned Indian women being inspired by African American and African women who unapologetically love their dark skin. I see dark-skinned Indians, right, who are finding ways to protest and be proud and love themselves because they see how African Americans are doing it. They're like, well, damn, me and this African American got the same skin color, and and she's proud of herself. She loves herself legitimately, and she's not just doing it, she's not pretending. It's not fake love. She really loves herself. So if she can love herself, I can love myself. And I see them saying that. Now, of course, we do have a lot of racism within the Indian community. And this is why I want to talk. This is where I want to get. So we see all the racism within the Indian community against African people, right? But at the very same time, when you see these races, right? And notice the age group. You see these races, they're all older, right? Meaning they're still operating on that old set of information that the European gave them. They still got their heads full with that. So they're operating like that. So they still hold those old tropes and their racist ways that they implement and practice wherever they are when they're around us, that annoy us or get in our way or hinder us. We still have to deal with that. But the underlying within their communities, if you look at their children, they're not down. They didn't download that same set of data that their parents downloaded. You see, the information they're getting is real-time information, right? And the people they're growing up with, no matter whether they're in India, Cambodia, Vietnam, whatever, they're growing up and they're absorbing the culture of the West, because the West pretty much owns, entertainment around the world for the most part, even though everybody has their own versions. And that product that they use to make money is black people. Black people are still the most prominent in the West. When people look at us, they're looking at us. When they look at America, they're looking at us, right? We are still influencing their children. Black African Americans, black Africans are influencing the children of all these societies. So now dark-skinned Indians are starting to feel proud about their black skin. They're starting to feel the pride in having that brown skin, and they're looking at their skin now, and they're not feeling automatically ashamed. They're feeling pride, which changes the dynamic within the country and the dynamic within the country amongst their own people, right? And they're talking about it. So the dark-skinned Indians who are starting their own revolution in their own country with their own culture, for them to be proud and to stake claim to the true identity of the Indian and the true pride of the Indian, they're using African culture in order to do that, right? They take from our protesting art forms like hip hop, right? where they take that hip hop and they express themselves and they communicate and they amp each other up within those communities to fight the powers that be. And that same thing is happening in almost every Asian country where the people, right, the older people who had that first set of disrespectful data that for no reason at all automatically discriminate on us, their children are on the other hand admiring us, using our struggle as a tool and an archetype to create their own struggles within their own countries in their own way, right? And so to me, the future ideology of human beings is not to hate the African, but to admire the African for all his accomplishments and all the tools that is given the whole world in order for them to protest against the culture that needs to be canceled. The white supremacist culture that needs to be canceled. Even Europeans and young European Americans, not all, because some young European Americans have decided to go the pan-European route, right? Or the white nationalist route. That's their choice. That's the way they're gonna go. But some has decided to embrace, the future and the inevitable, which is at some point, 1 in 5 guys. Come on. All the technology that's being invented, which we are actively participating in. I know you see there's always some pale white guy on, but if you look, the team is always a world effort, all right? A world collective effort within these organizations. But as you're going to see the future, if you're not looking at the future right now, the children right now who are talking, who are communicating, who will be set to take power, who will be taking over these soapboxes that we currently sit on now, they have a different mindset, all right? And they are, especially the white ones, which is the most scariest to white supremacy, is having their own Europeans disconnect from this culture of white supremacy, right? From having Europeans to embrace their post-Christian culture in Europe and going back to that and eliminating the white Christian capitalistic culture that is currently being canceled right now because it's not conducive for even them, because it only benefits the well-to-do. It doesn't benefit everybody, right? So it's Black power is empowering everybody else to find their own identity, voice, and culture is being created. Listen, the African American culture that's being spread around the world, people are creating their own cultures based off what they see. They're seeing us. They're emulating us. So that thing that they emulate is becoming them. That's the one thing about culture. Culture never stays the same. So as much as we love culture and we want to conserve certain types of culture, that never happens in real life. Because culture does belong to one group, but at some point, uncontrollably to the group, it spreads. Culture spreads. Think about it. European culture spread all over the world. Even though we all took certain parts of European culture and we absorbed it into our culture and we added it, right? Everybody has done that, right? Even the bad portion, which is the psychological damage that we've done to our heads because we think like them sometimes, we even have that unbeknownst to us, right? So the same thing happens with our culture as its prominence continues to grow, especially as we add more Africans are coming on deck, they're coming on live, and the spirit and the culture of the African in all its various different ways is being spread out and viewed in an African way, not in a European, not through European eyes, but through the African way. It's been represented properly, and it's still being gapped. All the people seem to love it. They gravitate towards it, and they're going to do it. No matter how much we may feel offended that they're culturally appropriating, because that's just one of the curses of being so prominent, is that people are going to do it. They like you, they're going to emulate you. It's going to be weird sometimes. It's just what they're going to do. But I think the future is very bright for us. The future is very bright because everybody is turning a new leaf, when it comes to how they look at the African American. Now, obviously, they're dealing with their own shit. So if you see on TikTok, you see European Americans fighting amongst themselves, trying to fix their culture so that they can have a better relationship with all the other cultures. They got to fix their own shit. You hear Indians and Asians and Chinese, Japanese, you hear them all having conversations, understanding that the old ways and the old ways of thinking are not very conducive, and it doesn't match up with the youth and how they admire groups that don't always look like them, and how they want to follow and emulate other cultures that doesn't particularly come from them. And a lot of that is African culture, and how it's going to grow. You know, they're now dealing with their younger groups of their communities actively seeking out relationships and romantic relationships with Africans, and they just have to deal with that within their families. There's a lot of things that these people, these different groups, you know, are dealing with that we African people don't even have to think about. We don't even have to think about a lot of this stuff. We don't even have these type of complexes for the most part, you know, that these other groups have when it comes to comparing themselves to us, admiring us. Because African Americans, African people, we don't, to be honest, we love everybody, right? We do. We talk a lot of shit. We get mad, but we love everybody, right? That's the one thing. Everybody, when they come to Africa, they get treated, they get welcomed, right? You don't hear a bunch of stories of any other group going to Africa and having a bad experience about not being welcome and people being racist to them. You only hear that when Africans go to other countries, right? That's them. That's their. We don't do that, right? So we're always welcome, but we don't care or sweat anybody else's culture for real. Not really. I mean, except for the complex we have with white folks, like everybody have, but that's damage. I'm talking about, like, in general, we don't look at any other group and be like, damn, we want to be just like them. We don't do any of the stuff that they do to us. We don't do none of that. We only be us. Right now, there is an exception to the rule. Japanese people. African people, African Americans, we love Japanese people. All right. We're cool. All right. Us and Japanese people and African Americans have the greatest relationship of all. Like, we're good. I mean, I know there's some issues in Japan. I used to live there in Japan. And let me tell you, they love us. You could be Nigerian, you can be African American. Japanese people culturally are different. And that's a whole nother video right there. But Japanese people, we love Japanese. We love anime. We love Japanese culture, and Japanese culture love us. And just Japanese people are just awesome. Just they just are. We love them, they love us. But other than that, other than us and anime and all that stuff, and our cultural exchange between us and Japanese people, other than them, man, we don't. Nobody else. There's nobody else. Just Japanese people. And that's where our entry into the blurb community is. The black nerd. The entry into black nerd is usually through the anime genre of, you know, cultural subculture. But other than that, guys, man, you know, all we have to do is keep being black. Keep being us, right? Despite the things that people say to us. We need to just keep being us despite the unusual hate we get for absolutely no reason. We need to keep being us and keep doing us, and let us keep inspiring all these other groups that are marginalized within their own communities to fight and not be silent and open their mouths and fight against the oppression that oppresses them, right? And even those white people need to keep on fighting the oppressive portions of their community so they can be free. Because look at every white person, every black person, every Indian person when they come to the cookout, when they come to the party. They be happy as hell. They be just as happy. Look at when you see a white guy dancing to some Afro beat or some hip hop. Look at an Asian when they dancing to some black music, some Afro beat or some hip hop. Look at these people. Nothing but happiness. Pure, satiated happiness and immersion into the African culture. They're happy. Right? That's what they want, right? You don't see that you don't see that same reaction with any other culture. How you see when they get to come to the cookout and how much joy they get just being around us. And for some reason, they're just as safe as they ever. And you ask them, they ain't never felt so safe. They've never felt as safe as they in their whole life until they was around a whole room full of black people that accepted them. They ain't never felt so safe. You ain't never gonna find anybody that said they felt any safer than being around a bunch of black people that has already accepted them and put their arms around them. You'll never find a person that say, these same people will say they don't feel safe in their own communities. The same stuff we complain about us not organizing as community. You look at them, Europeans will tell you that they don't even have a community. that their families don't even talk close like our families. You hear these, same thing, you hear these Asian people, listen to how their families are structured for real. They don't get along the way we get along. They don't talk to each other the way we talk to each other. Not culturally. They're telling us. They're telling us these things. I'm not making it up, right? We have something special, all right? We have something special, and the whole world knows it. And unfortunately for us, because we have that special thing, subconsciously and consciously, people are going to seek out to get that thing, whether they do it in a good way, bad way, or weird way, or indifferent. That's just what it is. But anyway, black power motivates the world to empower themselves. Anyway, tell me what you guys think about this in the comment section. This is Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.